Imagine this picture. Perfect peace, shattered in just a moment. It was just over a month ago, a place known for, well, just stunning tranquility, Bizaran Meadow in Pahalgam, Jammu, in Kashmir.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful spot.
And it became the scene of just unimaginable horror. April 22nd, 2025. A brutal terrorist attack just ripped through that quiet landscape.
It's chilling. 26 people killed, many of them tourists, just, taking in the scenery.
It really drove home how quickly that surface calm can just vanish, exposing the vulnerability underneath.
The images, the sheer pain of it, they really hit hard across the whole country.
It absolutely did. And, right after that tragedy, while everyone was obviously grieving, the conversation, the national mood, it shifted really fast.
Yeah, it wasn't just about mourning, was it? It became this catalyst, a trigger for a really forceful response.
Exactly. It led straight to Operation Sindoor.
And that's what we're really digging into today. This deep dive is all about Operation Sindoor, trying to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, and the kind of ripples it's still causing a month later.
We've been looking through quite a bit of material, articles, analyses, reports.
Yeah, and it paints a really complex picture, doesn't it? It's not just facts and figures. It's military action, intense political reactions, big strategic questions, and, of course, the human stories underneath it all.
That's right. So our goal here is to sort of guide you through all these different threads. We want you to finish listening with hopefully a clear sense of the military side, the political drama that unfolded.
The strategic stuff, both, on the ground and bigger picture, and definitely the human element woven through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a heavy topic, touches a lot of nerves.
It really does. And like you said, it all started in that supposedly peaceful place, Bizaran Meadow, tourists enjoying the view, that quiet moment.
And then, bam, armed militants storming in, separating people, the cold-blooded killing of 26 civilians. Just awful.
It really punctured that whole narrative of things being completely normal in Kashmir, didn't it?
Yeah, there's been this push for years to show stability, but an attack like this, especially when it gets linked back to groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba based in Pakistan.
Right. It just makes it impossible to ignore those threats that are still simmering there.
And, looking at the materials, it seems this wasn't entirely unexpected. There were hints, suggestions of intelligence lapses, warnings that maybe weren't fully acted upon.
We even saw the government acknowledging some of that, didn't we?
We did, which, makes you think. Usually you'd expect an acknowledged security failure like that to lead to some serious questions, maybe consequences for senior people.
You'd think so. But instead, the focus shifted incredibly quickly, like almost overnight, away from looking inwards at why it happened, towards, well, striking outwards. Retribution.
Yeah, some of the analysis frames it almost cynically. Like, instead of fixing the security hole that let the attack happen, the main response became this big military strike, presented as delivering justice.
And that takes us right to Operation Sindoor, that swift, fiery response. The night of May 6th, going into the 7th, India's armed forces launched these coordinated strikes.
And these weren't just random pot shots. The info suggests 9 specific terror camps were targeted across 6 cities in Pakistan, and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, PoK.
Places we've heard of before: Bahalpur, Meritke, Muzaffarabad, locations long associated with these militant groups.
And alleged links to parts of the Pakistani establishment, too.
And it wasn't just a one-off hit either. It involved both the Indian Air Force, the IAF, using jets, missiles, and the Army, bringing in drones and artillery. It went on for about 4 days.
Wrapped up with a ceasefire around May 10th, according to reports.
The scale, the apparent sophistication, it was presented as quite an achievement, technologically, too.
Yeah, there were descriptions of live feeds going straight into the operations room in South Block, where the top government and military brass are, watching it unfold in real time. People like the CDS, General Anil Chauhan, the Army Chief, General Upendra Dwivedi.
And the military itself was quite vocal about this success, right? Their own magazine, Bachit, in May, even showed images of destroyed sites.
With captions that were pretty blunt about the message. Basically, we hit them hard.
International experts chimed in, too. Analysts like Christopher Clary mentioned India showing its capability for what he termed coercive precision operations.
So, from a purely military standpoint, hitting those targets was seen as, a definite tactical victory.
And this is always the case, isn't it? There are other sides to the story. Pakistan had a very different narrative.
Oh, completely. They claimed they shot down 6 Indian jets, including a Rafale, which is pretty high-tech.
India acknowledged losing some aircraft, but didn't give a number, just cited a tactical mistake on May 7th.
Right. And when General Chauhan was apparently asked about those losses, his reported response was something like, "What matters is why they were downed."
Which, okay, points to strategic thinking, maybe, but it leaves the public, and maybe the taxpayers funding it all, without a clear number or a full story.
Exactly. So you have the military execution, that layer, but then there's the name itself, Operation Sindoor. That has a whole other dimension, deeply symbolic.
Hugely symbolic in India. Sindoor, that red powder Hindu women traditionally wear, it signifies marital strength, well-being.
And the connection they drew was explicit, linking the name directly to the widows created by that horrific Pahalgam attack. It's a name designed to evoke vengeance, strength, a promise of protection.
And that symbolism wasn't subtle. It was used very, very heavily in the political sphere. It felt very calculated to resonate with a specific audience.
Prime Minister Modi himself, at a rally in Rajasthan on May 22nd, made that link crystal clear. He said, "Sindoor, not blood, flows through Modi's veins."
Wow. That's quite a statement.
It felt less like a standard military briefing sometimes and more like a political rally, dramatic, almost movie-like pronouncements about the strikes.
Which leads us straight into the whole political dimension of Operation Sindoor. Yes, it was a military op, but you could argue it became an even bigger political moment for Modi and the ruling party.
Absolutely. Think about it. The Pahalgam attack exposed some pretty serious security weaknesses. But within weeks, the main story, the dominant narrative, had completely flipped.
Yeah, looking at the media coverage, it was often framed as justice served. Operation Sindoor became the payback, not just for Pahalgam, but for a whole string of past attacks.
There was this one analogy someone used that I thought was quite striking, describing the pivot like ordering a pizza to fix a broken fridge.
Huh, okay, explain that.
Well, ordering the pizza gives you immediate satisfaction, creates a bit of buzz, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually fix the fridge, the underlying problem that caused the failure. The focus shifts, but the core issue remains.
That's a powerful way to put it. And the political branding around Sindoor was just constant.
Relentless. Modi, front and center, reports stressing how he monitored the strikes all night, reinforcing that image of the strong, decisive leader taking direct action.
And it went way beyond speeches. You had the Sindoor symbolism itself, the ruling party organizing Tiranga Yatras, those flag marches connecting the operati to national pride.
And then, maybe the most controversial bit, those railway tickets, with Modi's picture saluting the heroes of Operation Sindoor.
That really caused a stir. We saw people like historian Mridula Mukherjee quoted, questioning why the PM's face had to be on everything, asking essentially, must we slap Modi's face on everything?
And the opposition, the Congress Party, drew that parallel to his photo appearing on a COVID vaccine certificates before, accusing the PM of turning the soldiers' bravery into his own PR stamp using social media.
The reaction to that criticism was pretty sharp, though.
Oh, yeah. When Mamata Banerjee, the West Bengal chief minister, called it playing political holy, with the name Sindoor implying using something sacred for political games, Home Minister Amit Shah hit back hard, accused her of insulting mothers and sisters.
It got really heated. The political back and forth just kept going, often getting quite personal.
Rahul Gandhi from Congress was pushing hard on the number of jets lost, and even made that explosive claim that India had basically tipped off Pakistan about the strikes beforehand.
Which the government flatly denied, of course.
And the ruling party's response was equally fierce. Social media posters trying to link Gandhi to Pakistan's military chief.
Then Congress fired back with pictures of Modi with the former Pakistani PM Nawaz Sharif. It really did feel like it descended into, I don't know, a meme war gone wild sometimes.
Yeah, moving pretty far from a serious discussion about national security strategy.
So, okay, let's try to get back to that. Beneath all the political noise and the headlines, what about the fundamental strategic questions? Did Operation Sindoor actually change the strategic game?
Well, militarily, you'd have to say yes. It hit its stated objectives, those terror hubs. And importantly, it seems India managed to do that without hitting Pakistani military bases directly.
Which probably helped avoid things escalating into a full-blown war, right?
Likely, yes. Diplomatically, India also seemed to gain some traction by framing it very clearly as counterterrorism against specific groups, not an attack on Pakistan as a state.
Though the international reaction was mixed, China wasn't happy, the U.S. urged caution.
True. But India's narrative seemed to land okay with some key players. And strategically, the intent was clearly to raise the cost for Pakistan for supporting terrorism. That line about the Indus Waters Treaty being put on hold.
Blood and water cannot flow together. Pretty strong stuff.
Absolutely. It signaled a much harder line. The operation also, showed off India's growing tech capabilities. Drones, missiles seemed effective against some defenses.
But there are risks too, as the analysis points out. Someone like Michael White, an analyst, noted that using these high-tech precision weapons could actually make future conflicts more unpredictable.
And Pakistan's claims about downing Indian jets, even if the numbers are disputed, suggest their own defenses aren't insignificant either.
Crucially, though, destroying terror camps. Well, new ones can always be built, can't they?
Exactly. If the root causes aren't dealt with, that means tackling Pakistan's alleged state support for certain groups, yes, but also, and this is critical, fixing India's own internal security gaps, the ones Pahalgam really highlighted.
And for people just living their lives, these big strategic debates can feel pretty distant, can't they? You might feel proud seeing a cricket star tweet, Jai Hind, or hearing about a madrasa adding Sindoor to its curriculum.
But that doesn't automatically fix the road outside your house or make groceries cheaper.
Right. It was also noted that even with a big defense budget for 2025-26, there wasn't an obvious increase in spending right after Sindoor that was specifically tied to lessons learned from the operation.
Which does make you wonder if the focus is sometimes more on the perception of strategic wins rather than genuine long-term investment in preparedness.
And amongst all the headlines about strikes and politics, it's so important we don't lose sight of the human stories in all this.
Definitely. There were moments of real inspiration, like those two women officers who delivered the media briefing on Operation Sindoor, Colonel Safia Qureshi from the Army and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh from the IAF.
That was presented as a big deal, breaking barriers.
And rightly so. Colonel Qureshi, a Muslim officer from a military background, Wing Commander Singh, a first-gen helicopter pilot. They really became symbols of India's diverse strength. Their composure during that briefing was widely praised.
But then there's the other side, the human cost that often gets drowned out by the political noise.
Yeah, reports mention civilian casualties over the border in Pakistan, in places like Muridke, pictures of rescuers going through debris. India maintained its targeting was precise, but collateral damage is, well, it's an awful reality of military actions.
And back home, the families of the Pahalgam victims, they're still dealing with that immense loss, made perhaps even harder by the admitted intelligence failures, where, as you said, accountability seemed lacking at the top.
And then you had that almost bizarre rush to commercialize the whole thing. Reports of movie producers scrambling for rights to make Operation Sindoor films.
Didn't some company even try to trademark the name Sindoor?
Yeah, apparently, until public backlash made them backtrack. And those railway tickets, seeing the Prime Minister's face saluting on a train ticket just felt wrong to a lot of people.
It really sparked outrage. Activists calling for the armed forces to stay completely apolitical.
It really felt like Sindoor went from being a military operation to almost a brand name, something for politicians and companies to cash in on.
So here we are, a month later, reflecting on Operation Sindoor. Where does India actually stand now? What are the main challenges looking ahead?
Well, it seems clear that while it was a tactical military success, getting lasting peace and security needs way more than just missile strikes and catchy slogans. There are several key areas needing real, sustained attention.
Top of the list has to be fixing internal security, right? Pahalgam showed serious gaps in intelligence coordination.
Absolutely. The analysis points towards needing a fundamental rethink of the security setup. Maybe investing more in surveillance, actual on-the-ground intelligence, rather than, say, putting resources into political branding exercises.
Then there's keeping up diplomatic pressure on Pakistan. Things like pushing for them to get back on the FATF gray list, that global watchdog for terror financing.
That's important, yeah. But getting results needs smart, consistent diplomacy, navigating global interests, not just making loud statements.
The engaging with people in Kashmir itself seems vital. That normalcy narrative took a big hit.
Addressing local issues, boosting the economy, genuinely empowering communities that could do more against militancy in the long run than just military responses alone.
And that call to keep the military out of politics feels really crucial.
It's essential. The armed forces belong to the nation, to all citizens. They shouldn't be used as political props or for election campaigns. Their sacrifices need to be respected and kept separate from political games.
Finally, there's the future of warfare. High-tech conflict isn't sci-fi anymore.
India needs serious investment in cyber defense, advanced drones, AI staying ahead of the curve. Maybe by shifting funds from, well, the analysis dryly mentioned things like building giant statues as areas where priorities could perhaps be reassessed.
And the wider economic picture is always there, isn't it? High unemployment, inflation. These are the daily realities for most people.
Yeah, the material noted how the opposition struggled to keep these economic issues front and center. It suggests that while politicians fight these battles over events like Sindoor, the basic struggles of everyday life might be getting sidelined.
It's like that analogy. Both sides are intensely focused on playing cricket, but the stands are half empty because the audience has other worries.
Something like that, yeah.
Looking globally, Operation Sindoor was definitely a wake-up call about the India-Pakistan situation. 2 nuclear powers trading missile strikes. That makes the world nervous.
For sure. The US, UK, UAE all called for calm. China seemed to lean towards Pakistan. But India's consistent messaging, we're hitting terrorists, not the state, did seem to get some traction internationally.
And the fact that the U.S. president eventually announced a ceasefire kind of underlined America's ongoing, if tricky, role in trying to manage the situation.
Yeah, for the rest of the world, it just highlighted how fragile things are in the region as long as these complex issues, state-sponsored terror, internal security weaknesses remain unresolved.
And just to touch on some of the, let's say, quirkier observations that came up, there was almost a dark humor in some of the commentary, wasn't there?
Oh, definitely. That idea floated about a Bollywood movie with Modi, maybe played by a big star, personally flying a Rafale tagline, Sindoor, the Vermilion Vengeance.
Or the sheer oddity of the train ticket branding made you wonder what's next. Modi's face on your breakfast cereal. Eat with valor.
And the point about Rahul Gandhi constantly asking about the exact number of lost jets making him sound, to some, like a kid counting marbles, while some of the political posters look like bad Photoshop jobs.
And don't forget the Sindoor merch madness failed trademarks getting into a madrasa curriculum. You could almost imagine Sindoor-themed energy drinks.
Unleash the vermilion within. It just shows how far the branding attempts went, almost into self-parody.
So wrapping this up, Operation Sindoor. Unquestionably a bold military move. It showed India's capabilities, and for many, it felt like a moment of national pride, of getting even, and it was definitely a major political event.
It certainly delivered a response to Pahalgam very publicly, and it clearly aimed to make supporting terrorism more costly across the border. But as the analysis shows, it also laid bare those vulnerabilities. The intelligence failures, the acknowledged aircraft losses, the real risks of escalation in high-tech conflict with a nuclear neighbor.
So for you, listening to this, you probably saw this unfold in the news, maybe felt that wave of national feeling. But the deeper questions that come up when you look at the whole picture are still there, aren't they? Does this kind of moment, a show of military force, political maneuvering, does it really lead to lasting security and well-being for ordinary people?
The real challenge for India, based on what we've looked at, seems to be balancing that show of strength with genuine long-term strategy, balancing the political messaging with real accountability for security lapses, balancing national pride with the hard-headed pragmatism needed to tackle these deep-rooted issues like internal security and diplomatic pressure.
The vermilion of Sindoor might have sent a powerful message by hitting those terror camps, but getting real, lasting peace and security needs so much more than a symbolic name or a fiery speech. It means tackling those deep, unresolved problems that keep fueling instability.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought for you to chew on. Does a symbolic act of revenge, even if it seems bold and militarily successful, truly clear the path for long-term peace? Or can it sometimes just paper over deeper cracks that are still there under the surface? What's the real way to measure success in this long fight against terror and for the overall health of the nation?
And maybe, just maybe, keep an eye out for how these big events keep echoing in strange ways, perhaps even on something as ordinary as a train ticket. It's a weird but kind of powerful reminder of how these huge geopolitical moments connect right down into the fabric of our daily lives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Operation Sindoor.
Keep asking questions, keep digging deeper. There's always more to understand.